Do you know the oldest known art in the world? It's graffiti. It first appeared on walls of caves thousands of years ago. Later, it was popularized by ancient Romans and Greeks. They wrote protest poems on buildings. Graffiti helped humans make their mark. It has historical significance, but honestly, it can also be an eyesore because sometimes it tells us a little too much about a civilization. Not an ancient civilization, but the current one. Hop to a monument near you and you'll know what I'm talking about. Let me guess what you're likely to witness. A monument wall will spill the tea on who's dating whom. It may even present an unwanted running commentary on key issues. It will be short and curt, like the name of a president followed by a slur. Or sometimes it's just to tell you the name of a recent visitor, then leave it at that. We understand that graffiti can be basic too, no pressure there, but seriously, the examples are everywhere. Let me share the most recent one. This week, the Colosseum was defaced by a Swiss girl. This is a historical monument in Rome. And it now bears the carved initials of this teenager. Bad news for her because the police have launched an investigation and she could face up to 5 years behind bars, plus a fine of about $17,000. This comes less than a month after another similar incident. A tourist cemented his love by writing his and his partner's names on the ancient landmark. Yes, it's terrible. But let's cut the guy some slack. He says he did not know how old the Colosseum was. He wrote an apology to the mayor of Rome. Too bad, the nearly 2,000 years old monument did not speak to him. But even if it did, would the Colosseum's age have been reason enough to stop? Because for as long as there have been monuments, there have been people to deface them. This is a worldwide phenomenon. It comes in all forms, big and small, and it is applied to all sorts of landmarks, ancient and modern. Just last month, a Canadian teenager carved letters on a Japanese temple, an 8th century temple, mind you, and he defaced it with his fingernail. No points for effort. But in a 2017 case of vandalism, the victim was a modern landmark, and the means were quite creative. The famous Hollywood sign in LA turned Hollyweed. It was a New Year's Day prank. It's clear that people rarely write something profound while defacing landmarks. One can say that there's something deep about this too, like defacing Humayun's tomb in India with the name of your lover. It's rarely for wealth or critical acclaim, so it could be seen as the purest form of art or the purest form of love. But honestly, I don't want to intellectualize why people deface monuments. I simply want to tell you why they do it and let you decide if it's a good enough reason. And let me be frank, landmarks are often defaced out of sheer human stupidity. Sometimes over a heady cocktail of daftness, courage and fascination. Other times it's for art. Like in 2011, when street artists transformed Bulgaria's Soviet army statue. They turned it into a colorful tableau of comic book characters. Or like this year in England, when blue crayon was scribbled all over an 18th century nude statue. Different levels of artistic competence, surely, but neither was warmly welcomed. Then there are some who deface monuments in the name of protest. Like in the case of the Washington Monument last year, it was covered with red paint, with vulgar anti-government slurs. An even bigger example of protest vandalism was seen in the year 2020 when protesters came for statues, some made of stone, others cast in bronze. Many had stood there in one place for over a century. They succeeded despite the test of time, but they could not win against anti-racism and police violence protests. These statues were pushed down, burned, colored all over. And here's the contradiction. In both cases, the reason was the same, protests. But while the defacing of the Washington Monument was unwelcome, the world was happy to challenge these statues because they stood for legacies of injustice. You see, monuments are works of art. Defacing them can be art too, a way to express yourself. You can make that argument. Sometimes it invites jail time. Other times it is cheered for. The matter is completely contextual. But even so, carving one's name on an ancient tomb just screams ignorance. It is the abuse of a monument, and that, we say, is never okay.